I could go on and on with Archie's bio, but I think for now, we'll just bring Archie Manning up. Well, welcome.
All those aren't good memories.
You ran a lot more than your sons, right?
Well, I was scared and kind of had to.
Is that something you taught them early on? Because Peyton was a totally different type of quarterback, right?
Yeah. They weren't too fast. Someone told Eli one time that he couldn't run out of sight in a month. My instructions to them kind of know what you're doing and get rid of the football. Because if you don't get rid of it, somebody's going to hit you.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the self-storage industry.
Thank you.
And we're going to get more into those guys in a little bit.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. And I guess I'm qualified. I've lived here 52 years, so I guess I'm qualified to welcome you to New Orleans. So we're glad to have you.
After your amazing career here with the Saints, you decided to stay.
We did. Olivia and I have been married 52 years. And 52 years ago, I was drafted by the Saints. We were at Ole Miss together and came out of Ole Miss, got drafted by the Saints. We were both from small towns in Mississippi, so not that far. And most guys in that situation go back in the off season to their hometown somewhere, or maybe their campus where they played. And we were so close to Mississippi. We went back a good bit to see family, went back to Ole Miss, but we were just so close. We said, we just stay here. And my thought was I'll stay here during my career, but probably at the end of my career, how long it lasts, we'll go back to Mississippi. By the time I finished, I had played 15 years. And we had 3 boys, and we used to have these Sunday night, they called it board meetings. We get around the dining room table, and we just kind of talk about what's going on, what's coming up, a little board meeting. So I had retired and hung around for about 6 weeks, and we had a board meeting, and okay, now we're going to have a little vote here. Where in Mississippi does everybody want to move? And the 4 of them was unanimous with those 4 said, we don't want to move anywhere in Mississippi. We want to stay right here. So we've been here. And
you could have gone anywhere. So
well, we liked it here. It's a neat place. I hope y'all enjoy it. It's a very unique town. We've got our socks knocked off almost 18 years ago by Hurricane Katrina. There've been other hurricanes, but Hurricane Katrina. And it wasn't the wind, like a lot of hurricanes. It was the water. And we've had to rebuild from that. But it's a great city, resilient people, wonderful people, friendly people. I read something one time and I liked. They asked me, what do you appreciate about New Orleans, or tell me about New Orleans? And this one person said, New Orleans people love their weekends more than anyone else I've ever seen. And
sometimes the weekends start early.
No, well, when you visit, every day is a weekend. But it's a fun place to live, and we've enjoyed it. People, I was a quarterback here for 12 years, and at that time, we have no professional baseball. We now have basketball, but back then we didn't have professional basketball. So it was kind of the only game in town, although college football is big in this area. Obviously, Tulane had a big year this year. LSU right up the road. But the Saints are people love the Saints. And it's kind of unique to be the quarterback of the team here. And people were really good to us. And we weren't very good. We didn't win that many games. But
I wasn't going to bring that up. But you were pretty successful. I mean, you had an amazing career, right? Did you feel like you were carrying the team an awful lot?
Well, I didn't look at it like that. I just wanted to win. That's what everyone wants to do. We started over so many times. You know what happens? You're not doing well, and the coach gets fired. So I was here 12 years. I don't know if it was a record. It was a pretty good average. I had 6 head coaches during those 12 years I was here. So you meet a lot of coaches. You learn a lot of football. You learn a lot of different offense from different coaches and so forth. But it's not the key to success, And they finally did. It was after I was gone, but finally kind of got the right management, the right coaching, and a good collection of players, and became a solid team. And then eventually, shortly after Hurricane Katrina, won a Super Bowl here, which was the most amazing thing to happen for the city and for the people.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was. Drew Brees. We got a little ahead of ourselves there. There's so much I want to ask you. One of our staff members, Tom Comey, and I, y'all may not know this, but we interned in sports departments in college, and you're not going to make a whole lot of money in sports departments, but we loved it. We were looking at clips at Channel 9 in Washington, D.C., and so we know how iconic you are. And my father went to high school here at Jesuit High School, which is probably a rival to where your sons went, right?
Not really. It's much bigger. My kids went to Newman School, which was much smaller, so they don't play each other in sports very much. Jesuit's a wonderful school, outstanding school.
And then before that, but let's go back to Ole Miss. Is it true that you almost didn't go to Ole Miss? You almost? Well,
I was going to. I wasn't recruited heavily. I wasn't very big, and played a real small high school, and we weren't a good program. I love sports. Played all sports. So when I got recruited by Ole Miss, I was excited. They had great teams in those years, had a great Hall of Fame coach named Johnny Vaught. But I didn't have but 3 offers, but I wanted to go to Ole Miss. So I went, and then I think what you're talking about, kind of where we got, I lost my dad in my sophomore year. I was from this small town, and had my mother and sister there. And so I just didn't know when I lost him, I didn't know. I had to kind of became a man overnight, and I felt like my responsibility is my mother and my sister, and do I need to get a job and drop out of school and that type of thing.
Right. Well, that's admirable. She encouraged you to stay, though, right?
Absolutely. She would hear nothing of that. No, you're going to stay at Ole Miss. You're going to get a degree from Ole Miss. You're going to play football at Ole Miss, and you're going to enjoy that experience. And like so many of us, my mother was wonderful. She was strong during that time, just very supportive of me and my sister, and so it worked out well.
And who was the number 1 pick when you came? You were number 2.
I was a second pick in the draft. Yeah, in the year I came out, it was a long time ago, 1971. They called it the year of the quarterback. It was the first time. It's happened since, but it was the first time there's ever been quarterbacks picked 1, 2, 3 in the draft. Jim Plunkett, who won the Heisman Trophy that year from Stanford, a good friend of mine, was the first pick. He went to New England. I was the second pick, came here. The third pick was also a good friend named Dan Pastorini from Santa Clara, who went to the Houston Oilers. So we were 1, 2, 3. Frankly, I was happy to be number 2. I wanted to go to, I'd rather come to New Orleans than go to New England or Houston.
Yeah, stay close to home, right?
Yeah, worked out.
Good choice. And so let's talk about your career a little bit. Just a couple sports questions. Who's the most intimidating player that you played
kind of
against?
dating myself here because I was a young player and he was maybe in his latter years, and probably this crowd is too young to remember, but back in those days, the Chicago Bears were known as monsters of the Midway. Very physical team. Now, eventually under Mike Ditka, they won a Super Bowl, and they were really an intimidating team. But back in my day, the middle linebacker of the Chicago Bears was Dick Butkus. So, I've heard about Dick Butkus. So I'm a rookie, and I got thrown in right away. They just threw me out there, and we weren't very good. I mean, the record the year before was they'd won 3 games, so they didn't play but 14 games, 3-11. There's a reason they had that early pick, and so they threw me out there, and third game, Chicago Bears come to town. Well, the way you did this in those days, they don't do this anymore. They used to send a scout out to scout teams. And we'd come in to do the game plan for the next week. It'd be on Wednesday morning. This scout would give a report on the team we're playing. So he had scouted the Bears their first 2 games, and he gives his scouting report. And everything was butkus. You know, well, can't do this because of butkus. You can't run up the middle because of butkus. You got to be careful throwing over the middle. Butkus. You got everything's butkus. So we get the game plan, and I'm walking out to practice. And as I'm walking out to practice, my 2 starting wide receivers came up to me. They were both 4 or 5 year guys, experienced guys. They called me Rook, and they said, one of them said, "Rook, we noticed in the game plan this week where we have the slant pass in, you know, we're down across the middle." I said, "Yeah, we always have the slant pass in." He said, "Well, you can call it, but we ain't going in there."
We call that over the middle now.
So I thought that was intimidating a little bit, yeah.
What's the craziest thing you ever experienced in a football game?
The craziest thing ever said to me during a football game, I got traded late in my career. I got traded to Houston, then I got traded up to the Minnesota Vikings. Bud Grant, I'd played for Bud Grant in a Pro Bowl game. They lost their starting quarterback one year, Tommy Kramer, so they traded for me. So I go to the Vikings. Didn't get to play much. I had a thyroid problem, had Graves' disease, so I didn't get to play much. Went back the next year. I'm backing up Tommy Kramer. I'm 36 years old, kind of in the twilight of a pretty mediocre career anyway, so I'm doing all right being a backup to Tommy Kramer. So the Bears, this Bears I'm talking about, had gotten right. They had gotten right. Mike Dick, Buddy Ryan had this defense, Mike Singletary, all these unbelievable players. They should have won about 3 Super Bowls during the era. They won one right here. They beat the Patriots. But anyway, we're going to Chicago late in the year to play the Bears. And Tommy Kramer's hurt. At least he said he was hurt. So I get the nod that day to go against the Bears, and we're not very good in Minnesota. Bud Grant had quit. He resigned. We had a new coach. And we also had a rookie center. So we decided in the game, because we can't protect, we can't keep them out, we're going to go to the shotgun. And so we go out and play. It's kind of a frozen field, real cold and windy in Soldier Field in Chicago. And the center is just snapping balls through my legs and over my head, and then we can't block on it. I'm just getting killed. It was awful. It was just awful. So late in the game, that year, the Chicago Bears set a new NFL record for quarterback sacks. That year, they sacked opposing quarterbacks 72 times. Well, they got 12 of them that afternoon. And not to make this too long a story, but the 11th time I got sacked, a big defensive tackle from Arkansas named Dan Hampton, he knifes through. He grabs me. He's kind of got me from behind. And it wasn't very long, but in a game like it seemed like a long time. He's kind of holding me up right there. And a guy named Otis Wilson, big defensive end, he comes in, he plants his headgear right up under my chin and just blows me up. Busts my chin wide open, and then just drives me into the ground. And then, a few more on top of it. I mean, it's late in the game. They're beating us by a big margin. I'm on the bottom of this pile. I'm helpless. Now, I'm going to get up if they ever get off of me. But I'm there. I can't, he's right in my face mask, blood spitting out of my chin. And he said something to me I never heard in a football game before. He just said, "Archie, these guys ain't blocking for you." And then he continued, he said, "You ought to just lay here and play like you hurt." And I said, "Otis, I'm damn well thinking about it."
Was the game more violent then? I mean, we all know what's happened with the speed.
Yeah, the game was violent. The game was violent. Big, strong, fast. The players in those days weren't as big, strong, and fast as today's players. The off-season weightlifting conditioning programs weren't really organized in there. You kind of did that on your own. Then it kind of started in the colleges, the weight coaches. And so the game today, they're so big, strong, and fast. But it's always been violent. Now, what has really improved is the safety issue. It was 6-7 years ago, it had really gotten out of hand. It was out of hand. The concussion issue. I think everyone has tried to improve, and it has improved. I have a lot of mothers and grandmothers who come up to, we have a football camp we've had for 27 years. It's just for quarterbacks and receivers, but I understand it. A lot of mothers, grandmothers say, I'm not sure I want my little boy out there playing football. And I get that, I understand it. So, but we've come a long way. The pros, if the helmet-to-helmet thing is of the past, or if it happens, you're really penalized. College has a great system. Target rule. If you target somebody in a football game in college, you're out of the game. That's a good rule. If you do it in the second half, you miss the first half the next week. And I'm on a board of the National Football Foundation, College Hall of Fame. We tried to get involved with the safety issue. Where we found there was too much contact hitting going on was in high school football. Now, I love high school coaches. I love what high school coaches do to turn boys into men in our society. But we had too much. It's kind of like, they kind of have to teach kids how to tackle, but there was too much of it going on. So that's improved. Safety issue, it's better. In my day, they never said the word concussion. No one ever, a doctor, a player, no one ever said concussion. The word was, you got dinged. You got dinged. So one day, we're playing the Eagles here in the Superdome, and I got dinged. And my two best friends on the team were my backup quarterback, Bobby Scott, and our middle linebacker, Joe Fetterspiel. We'd been together 10 years. That's a long time here. Nobody else stayed around 10 years here. A lot of movement. I played against both of them in college. Scotty was at Tennessee, Fed was at Kentucky. So one day I get dinged against the Eagles. So I'm over on and Scotty never had a concussion because Scotty didn't play. He was always a backup. So I'm over there on the bench, and then popped these ammonia caps and kind of got it going there. And Fed came up to me, called me Red. He said, "Red, you going back in?" I said, "Well, I'm trying to clear these cobwebs. I think I'm gonna go back in." He said, "Well, you got to go in. Scotty's over there warming up, and he's already thrown 3 interceptions."
I just want to listen to you. I don't want to ask any more questions. Did you ever discourage the boys from playing football? What did you when you had them when they were young and they were toddlers? Did you think?
I didn't discourage them, but I like probably it's kind of a misconception people have. I didn't encourage them to. They like sport. Little League baseball is kind of the first thing that comes along, coach pitch. That's healthy and good. That's great. They played basketball leagues and everything. I had some friends that were coaching playground football, like 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, tackle football. I didn't like what I saw there. I just didn't think it was really necessary. I thought football was nothing wrong with kind of getting in the backyard and just playing ball. So I was kind of against organized tackle football until they got maybe in junior high school at school where it's really organized like that. Today they have flag football. Greatest thing in the world, flag football. I wish I could have played flag football.
It's the Pro Bowl now, it's flag football.
But I didn't encourage, but they like sports. Now they were around it. I was the quarterback of an NFL team here. We had a little ritual where a player, when the kids got old enough, you could take them with you to practice on Saturday morning. Saturday morning before a game is kind of a light day, a little walk-through, special team, and you take your sons to practice. That was fun. So they were around it. They liked it. They wanted to play, and they started at football. They started in junior high school. Eli actually played a little flag football in the fifth and 6th grade.
Did you have a sense for how good they would be?
Did
you have a sense for how good they would be? That they'd end up dominating the league?
No, they just played. And Newman School here is out of the system in Louisiana, goes all the way to 5A. It was 2A. So it wasn't Jesuits 5A. Newman would never play Jesuit in football. It's just it's a mismatch. So no, I did, and I never went there. When Peyton was like a sophomore, he was a starting quarterback. Cooper was his wide receiver, and as my buddies would say, "Oh, Peyton's going to be a college football player." I said, "Shut up! You don't know. You're not a scout. You're not a coach. You don't know what you don't know what you're talking." I didn't want to go there. Just play, enjoy the journey. And he grew and played and became. Colleges liked him, and so.
Did they ever focus on any of the other sports? Were they strong at baseball?
Yeah, Peyton was a good baseball player. Cooper was on part of 2 state champion basketball teams. Besides he was a wide receiver in football. Eli played other sports. I encourage that. Parents ask me about that. I'm not really one on specializing when you're 12 years old in a sport. Play them all. Just kind of. Now, if you're kind of a prodigy in tennis, maybe, or if you're shooting 73 when you're 11 years old, maybe so. But I think play a little bit of everything, see what you like. And then maybe when you get to high school, sophomore, junior year, you might narrow it down to 2. But I think it's good. Mine always played 2 or 3 sports, which I think is healthy.
And then it became pretty apparent that, Cooper was going to be pretty good. He's probably recruited, right?
Cooper was recruited. Cooper was a wide receiver. The most enjoyable year of football, Olivia and I will agree, the most enjoyable year of football during all this stuff that happened that we ever had was probably 1992. Cooper was a returning all-state wide receiver at Newman, and Peyton won the quarterback job. So they played together that year. That was fun. Now, it was a little embarrassing at times because there were 2 other good, I thought, really pretty good senior receivers on the team. But Peyton never threw to anybody but Cooper. and like I said, I didn't stick my nose in things. I didn't coach. I never tried to coach. I just tried to support and be there. But I did Peyton being a sophomore, I kind of encouraged him. I always felt like we always had to try to have breakfast together. And I just mentioned to Peyton, I said, Peyton, maybe you need to spread the ball around a little bit. He said, Dad, Cooper tells me he's open on every single play. I said, yeah.
Was he always so strong at preparing? He looked like the offensive coordinator out there himself,
yeah,
right?
I think so. I think a little bit. You talked about he wasn't a runner. I think the fact that he really wasn't going to make plays with his legs, is though he needed to do it from the pocket passing. And so I think he wanted to know where he needed to go with the football so he could get rid of it and be effective, and he prepared. I think it's a pretty good philosophy, actually. I think a lot of times maybe the quarterbacks who strike out, who don't quite get there, is because I think not the physical, but the cerebral part of the game is what gets them, and sometimes it's just because they don't prepare enough. Yeah.
And so Cooper had an injury.
Yeah, Coop got recruited 8 or 9 schools, and he was real close to going to Virginia, where he had a bunch of friends, but then went to Ole Miss. But in his freshman year, we found out he had a stenosis, he had a spinal stenosis, really born with it, just real narrow spinal cord. We're very fortunate we got him off the football field, because at high school he played wide receiver and played safety, so a lot of contact. So we were so blessed that he never had just a real bad situation right there. But he was having some atrophy, and we discovered this. So I had to get him. I had a big time laminectomy, and I had to get him off the football field. It was tough on the family, because he was the first one there, and he wanted to play college football. It really affected Peyton. Peyton just thought life is not fair, but Cooper kind of got the whole family through it. Cooper's one in our family. He has this great spirit about it. He's a real funny kid. Always had a great sense of humor, and people like to be around Cooper, but he's got a great attitude and great spirit. He got us through it, and he handled it well. That's
a great story. And then you went through the recruiting with Peyton, and I'm sure you just left it to him. I'm guessing the coaching that was available.
Liv and I kind of felt like if we need to do our job during the years of our children being able to make their own decisions. I think that's important. You challenge them. You want them to make good decisions. You want them to know the difference in right and wrong. One of the things, I think, I get a lot of questions about raising kids, and certainly I'm not standing on a platform saying we knew how to do it. You just try to do the best you can. I think, though, a lot of people raise kids like their parents raised them. And Olivia had wonderful parents. I had a wonderful parent. I had my dad for 19 years. My mother was wonderful. So in raising kids, we kind of tried to do kind of the same thing. And I think one of the most important things my mother used to stress is line up your priorities. Line up your priorities. Just what's most important. What's most important? Faith, family, not football, school. Sports comes in there, extracurriculars somewhere else. So we were very, very fortunate.
But we were talking last week and a little bit behind here. You said you kind of stayed away from the X's and O's with them, right? You left the coaching to the coaches?
Being a football player, being a professional quarterback, I just didn't think I needed to be sticking my nose into their team, into their offense. They had a coach. And that's his job. So I stayed away. I love to go to games. I tried to be, I kind of had a little philosophy. When I got out of the car to go to a sporting event, I said, okay, stupid, go stand on the top row and keep your mouth shut. And I kind of learned that just by watching and that wasn't always the case. It didn't really look like, it wasn't a good look for me. So I didn't try to be a coach. Now, if along the way, if there's some way I could help them, or they asked me for help or advice, I'd try to give it to them. Peyton told a story. He said when they were coming up that I would never say, let's go throw the football. I would never. But if they came to me and saying, Dad, you want to go with us to work out? I'd go. And I'd do whatever they wanted to do. Mostly, I was always kind of a discouraged wide receiver coach. So when Peyton would go throw, I like to spend my time with his receivers. I thought I could help them along the way.
And of course, he chose. Were you disappointed he chose Tennessee?
At Tennessee?
Yeah. Were you disappointed that he chose Tennessee?
No, I wasn't disappointed. Like I said, we let him make up his own mind, and he was heavily recruited. He heard from 100 schools. Peyton loved recruiting. He loved to talk to coaches, loved to talk football. But I finally kind of had to advise him toward this. Peyton, you got to dwindle it down. You got to get down to 5 or 6. It's not being fair to all these coaches you're talking to. And he did. Peyton loved Ole Miss because Livy and I both went to Ole Miss. Cooper went to Ole Miss. But at the time, Ole Miss just wasn't in a good place. It looked like it might be some probation coming, which it did. And he did a good job. He really did his due diligence on a lot of schools and chose Tennessee. And he made a great decision. It was a great decision. Now, Livy and I were fine with it. A lot of Ole Miss people weren't real happy about it. They weren't real happy at me. I thought maybe I'm supposed to deliver him to Ole Miss.
Well, and then he had an amazing career at Indianapolis. How do we sum up his period with the Colts? Anything stand out during his time?
Well, just that whole experience. Indianapolis had gotten their team, the old Baltimore Colts, left Baltimore in the middle of the night and moved to Indianapolis. Yeah. That was very unique and rare. They weren't very good. Like Peyton said, there's a reason that he was the first pick in the draft. There's a reason they had the first pick. They weren't very good. But they kind of doing a start over and had a guy named Bill Poe in, general manager. Jim Moore was the first head coach. Then when Tony Dungy took over, they accumulated some good players. Marvin Harrison was already there, but after Peyton's year, they drafted Edgerrin James. They drafted Reggie Wayne and just committed. But Tony Dungy was a big part of it. And what was the most fun thing about it, they changed the whole culture of football in Indiana, in Indianapolis. It was Hoosiers. It was Hoosiers. Everything in Indiana is basketball. And they started winning and got good, and all of a sudden Indiana fans and Indianapolis fans became football fans. So it was fun just as parents, and we didn't go to every game. We'd go up there some and be around to see see that transition. It was pretty. And then they eventually won a Super Bowl, which was pretty cool.
Well, we have more than a few Indianapolis folks here today, and I've talked to some of them about what stood out with Peyton's career. And I think we have a couple clips from one game in particular, the one I remember.
Okay.
Scott, do we have that back there?
Manning's pass is intercepted. It's Asante Samuel going in untouched.
And Samuel, if he sees the play, he diagnoses what Peyton Manning's going to do, and he just reacts to the football fast.
3rd and goal from a yard out. Manning diving for it, and the football is it across? Touchdown. As Manning rolls out, he has Klecko open, and Klecko is in for the touchdown. Taking it to the short side for the tie, the pass. It is caught, and the game is tied. We have just witnessed the largest comeback ever in a conference championship game.
That was a good day. That was a good day.
Where were you for that?
We were there, and that interception, right, you know, the Patriots, I mean, they were good. They were so good. And Indianapolis had been to New England in a championship game in the snow, got beat. Had been there in another playoff game, got beat. And they played them in the regular season. The record was not good against the Patriots. They were just good. They got probably the greatest coach in history, great quarterback, great players. So I was right there in the end zone for that interception. 21-7 down to the Patriots, you know, it's just, so that second half was, that's the most memorable part of the whole time up there. And if you, Indianapolis fans probably same way, to come back and to win that game, which you know, wins the AFC championship, but sends you to the Super Bowl. I mean, it was just, I can remember after the game, I always waited on Peyton. And they lived, not too far from Indianapolis, but they had an apartment in town. So we were going over there after the game, so I always waited on Peyton. So they had a policeman who was going to drive him over there. The rest of the family had already gone. So we leave the dome, and it's not very far. Couldn't go anywhere. People just, the streets, you Indianapolis people remember that? I mean, the streets, everybody just piled out of the dome and was in town. Now, they hadn't won a championship yet. They eventually did beat the Bears in the Super Bowl. But that was like winning the Super Bowl. And a big part of it was just beating the Patriots, but also finally getting there. That was fun.
Yeah, I think they were down 21-3 and made that comeback. So it helps to be at home for these championship games, right?
Playing home is good. Playing at home is good. It's tough to go to New England. Tough. It's tough to go play there. But anytime, it's home field advantage is a big deal.
And how did the family feel when you know, I think a lot of people probably felt he was going to end his career in Indianapolis.
Peyton wanted to end his career in Indianapolis. He felt he had 4 neck surgeries. So this was really kind of physically, he just didn't know if he's going to be able to play again or not. And what was happening, Indianapolis didn't know if he was going to be able to play. He had been there 14 years. And there was but because he didn't play his last year, they didn't win any games. So they're going to have first pick in the draft. And there's a great quarterback looming out there named Andrew Luck. So Indianapolis is in a situation, so Peyton's probably not going to be able to play. We need to pick Andrew Luck. So Peyton wanted to play, and he was working to try to get back to play, and he knew the situation there in Indianapolis. But then he decided, no, I'm supposed to play in one place, and I'll stay, and I'll maybe play a year if I can get back healthy, and then I'll help Andrew. And that wasn't going to work. So he kind of gave in to. He and the owner had a good relationship. They had a press conference. Indianapolis folks will appreciate this. It's kind of the way Peyton works. He decided he's going to stay, so now they got to have a press conference. So he went in, he said, okay, told the owner, here's what I'm going to say during the press conference, and here's what you're going to say during the press conference, okay? And so that's kind of the way it went. Left on good grounds, good situation. He was so blessed, though, to get to Denver signed him. He wasn't the same physical quarterback, but they had 4 great years in Denver. They won 52 games in 4 years and went to the Super Bowl twice. So he was very blessed to be able to play again after an injury. Yeah.
Amazing, really. Have a second act like that. Not many do.
It was fun.
So then Eli came along, and he did pick Ole Miss, right?
He did. He got me back in good graces with Ole Miss people. Eli, he didn't like recruiting. He had, as an 8th grader, kind of watched all that with Peyton. He said, I don't want to go through that. He had it down to 3 schools real quick. He was going to Virginia, Texas, or Ole Miss. And it didn't look like he was going to go to Ole Miss because he didn't feel like the coach really wanted him as much as maybe Virginia and Texas. The coach left. They brought it. He had told Tennessee, I'm not coming to Tennessee and following Peyton. But Peyton's quarterback coach at Tennessee became the head coach at Ole Miss, David Cutcliffe. The day they hired him, Eli committed to Ole Miss the next day. So, and that worked out well. He loved his time at Ole Miss. They were able to come back, have better years they'd had. His last game was in the Cotton Bowl. Ole Miss hadn't been in the Cotton Bowl in 40 years. So it was a good run at Ole Miss.
And then he was actually happy to go to New York. Is that right?
He was. He didn't. It really got me in trouble. Eli, he's real quiet and everything. But he and his agent decided that they didn't want to go to the San Diego Chargers. Now I hope nobody's here from San. Don't get mad at me. I didn't. But they didn't want to go, and it was a pretty bold thing. And San Diego went ahead and picked him, but he told them he didn't want to go, so they traded him, and the Giants traded for him. He was really excited about going to the Giants. And
why did he not want to go to San Diego? Just where the team was?
Just a lot of they just kind of in a mess in their front office at the time, and it hadn't had a lot of success with things, and it was just the advice that he got. I thought it was kind of bold. Of course, they blamed it all on me. They said I steered him that way. Maybe because I played on bad teams, I'm advising Eli not to go to a bad team. I'm just trying to way back and be a not involved father, and all of a sudden New York media just wears me out with that.
Yeah, no, New York's tough. But, again, amazing career in New York. And, you and your wife must have been pinching yourselves. And we have a clip here from I think we all remember this one from one of Eli's Super Bowls.
2nd and 3.
Yeah, that was great.
That's the control room. A lot of chaos there, but
2nd and 3. Play action. Over the middle. Touchdown Giants. David Tyree. Eli Manning stays on his feet. Airs it out down the field. It is caught by Tyree.
oh my God. This ball's thrown and Tyree just goes up for it like a basketball player. Harrison trying to knock it down. And Eli, man, I don't know how he got out of there. I thought he was on the ground and then he came out of the pile.
The Giants have won the Super Bowl. It will go down as one of the biggest upsets in Super Bowl history as the Giants win it by 3.
Can you believe he got out of that tackle?
No, I couldn't. Glad he did. It was that game. People forget just what big favorites the Patriots were that day. They were double-digit favorites, and also kind of people forget they were probably going to be declared the greatest team of all time. They went undefeated, 16-0, and then so they were going to be 19-0. I used to play against the Dolphins when that year they went undefeated. They're declared the greatest team of all time. One of the funny things I remember about that game. So I knew a lot of those Dolphin players, and evidently they still, they're up in age, but they get together, and that was really important. They wanted the Giants to win so bad. I mean, they didn't want to pay. So it must have been about a dozen of them. They got together at a country club and watched the game. And after the Giants won, they went outside. They might have had a couple of cocktails. I don't know. And got the video phone going and sent it to me. And this is Larry Zonka, Manny Fernandez, Jim Kick, some guys. They were pretty giddy about the Giants, and they loved Eli. They loved Eli. But that was it's just a great example of football. I mean, things can happen. My dad always said football, that ball is oblong, it bounces funny. So that was kind of a funny bounce, Eli being able to, who's not really a scrambler, to get away. David Tyree was not a star of that team. He caught that first touchdown right there, but then he made that helmet catch. So a little story that goes with that. David Tyree was a special teams player. He wasn't a great wide receiver and didn't catch many balls for the Giants. Well, in practice that week in Arizona, Plaxico Burress was their star receiver. Plaxico slipped in the shower, and they didn't think he was going to be able to play. So the last big practice for Super Bowl was on Friday afternoon. So Plaxico didn't practice, and David Tyree did in his place. So Peyton and Eli had this thing. Eli got on the bus after practice. He called Peyton. Peyton said, all right, we had an old saying, kind of the hay's in the barn. What does it look like? He said, well, I don't know if Plaxico is going to be able to play. But he said, but I got to tell you, David Tyree just had the greatest practice in the history of Giants football. Peyton said, really? He said, yeah, without a doubt. So they kind of left it at that. It went on, David Tyree caught a touchdown pass, then he made the helmet catch. Come to find out, Eli was kind of using his positive thinking. Evidently in practice that day, David Tyree dropped 7 passes. He dropped 7 passes. And Eli just said, I got to just forget that. And he's got to forget it and everything. So it was a pretty good story.
That's amazing. You've had so much success, and you have another generation coming, which I want to talk about in a minute. But did they ever want to go into coaching or in the booth?
Yeah, maybe if I hadn't played so long, I might have thought about it. Olivia always said, what are you going to do? You're going to coach, aren't you? You're going to coach, aren't you? Maybe just because I saw so many come and go, I just said, it's a nomad life. I mean, if you're going to coach, you got to be ready to move and go and move family. And I love coaches. I respect that fraternity more than anything. But I just had so many come and go. This was always my story when somebody asked me, am I going to coach? So I'm playing for the Saints. The worst situation you can ever have is when you're losing and they fire your coach in the middle of the season. They fire your head coach in the middle of the season. It's awful. The assistants know they're not going to be there next year. They're looking out for jobs and everything. The coach got fired because you're not very good. It's just awful. So we'd had our coach got fired. And one day we had a wide receiver coach. He's kind of a good old boy from Alabama, Auburn, named Red Phillips. So Red and I went and had a cup of coffee one day. And like I said, he was kind of a good old boy from Alabama. He said, Archie, and I said, Red, what are you going to do? He said, I don't know. He said, I don't know if I can get another coaching job. I may go back home, start selling insurance or getting a storage business or something.
Would have been a smart decision.
He would have been smart. He would have been smart to do that. But he said, Archie, I'm going to give you some good advice. I said, what's that? He said, if you ever decide to get in coaching, you ought to get yourself a mobile home. And I knew what he meant. I knew what he meant, and I think that's why I never wanted to get a mobile home. So yeah. I decided not.
Well, and the boy, I mean, I said it before, but Peyton, Peyton did seem like an offensive coordinator, and either of them, I think, probably could end up coaching.
They could
right?
have. Yeah, they both coached the Pro Bowl this year and had fun doing it. It was a flag football game. I think most people feel like Peyton would be a good coach. He likes the game. He studied the game, especially on the offensive side. They went through a period where the game changes, evolves, goes in cycles, and he was at a time when they were doing things a little different, a lot more shotgun offense, and then got into the read option stuff, and where the rules changed a little bit to kind of help quarterbacks. So I think they knew what they were doing. And
then he could have been in the traditional booth, right, doing the commentary, right? Probably with a few offers.
Yeah,
he chose not to.
He had some chances to do the Monday night thing or Sunday night thing, and Peyton and Ashley have twins, a boy and a girl that are 12, be 12 this month. He just didn't want to give up his weekends where they have their activities to go do that. You got to be all in to do that, and usually head out and be at practice. If you're doing Monday night, you got to be at practice on Saturday. You meet with head coaches, meet with the quarterback, and then don't get home till Tuesday. And so I think he just threw it out. Maybe it was during the pandemic that he just said, look, I'm just not going to do it. If you can figure out a way that I can do it without leaving home, then we'll do it. So I think that's how the Manning cast came
Manning
about.
cast is awesome.
Yeah. They've had fun. They've had fun doing it. I was doing this Tuesday morning in Orlando with Eli and Cooper, and they would ask Eli about the Manning cast. He said, if someone had told me that I can go down in my basement and watch a football game with my brother, make fun of him during the game, and you're going to pay me to do that? He said,
Peyton's like a host, like, you
Yeah.
know? And I think the ratings are awesome. They don't do it every week.
They do.
But-
It got better in year 2. First year, the guest is a big deal. I was doing one of these with Peyton after that first year. He had a couple of guests that, well, I'm just not sure. Anyway, they asked Peyton, says, what's the criteria for your guest? Peyton said, well, number one, we'd like for him to be sober. That'd be a good thing. Yeah.
Have they succeeded in that?
Yeah.
For the most part. Well, we were talking about their sense of humor, and we saw a bit of that clip, and Scott may have rebooted that back here, but you want to look at that real quick? The whole
That's
family.
the control room. A lot of chaos there, but it all looks good when it comes out on the show, actually, thanks to those people. Then over here in the digital center is our highlight screening area. So that's where we get all the games that are played that night, down in a 90-second or 2-minute clips or whatever you're going to see on SportsCenter every night. This hallway, it runs between, both rooms. If you want to get from the control room to the screening, then this is the hallway you'd take. Questions or anything? I can answer whatever you want about the place. Nothing?
Was that fun?
Yeah, it was fun. We get comments about commercials. It's kind of fun to do some commercials together. That one was a long, long time ago. I've always thought ESPN does good stuff. What I remember most about that, we were kind of short on time. So they asked me, said, all right, well, they actually asked the boys, said, all right, when y'all are frolicking or cutting up, what does your dad do? They said, well, the first thing he does, he gives us the look. So that was my look, and it was a one take. It was a one take. We did it like that. And I can't tell you how many people come up to me and say, my dad used to give me that look right there. Like that. But that was fun. ESPN does a good job with their commercials and kind of bringing them back and rerun.
Well, they've got an amazing sense of humor. I love the Saturday Night Live when he's pelting the kids with the football,
That one got a lot of, still does. Travis Kelce did Saturday Night Live this week, so they brought back a lot of Peyton stuff, and so when Eli did it too. But Peyton's deal, hitting those kids with those footballs. Was just, and I've done these with him, and that's what people ask about. And of course, he kind of explains they were Nerf balls. These were child actors out there. As a matter of fact, he said the parents were all out there watching, and some of the parents came up and said, hey, I want you to hit my kid.
That's too much. So let's, we only have a few minutes left, but how do you feel about this next generation coming up? And I guess Arch is the big name now. And
Cooper's son, Arch, he played high school football and just finished his senior year. Got heavily recruited. He's a quarterback. Got heavily recruited and chose to go to Texas. And he's there. That's kind of a popular thing now. They go ahead and go. He's supposed to be a senior this spring, but he went ahead and rolled early, and he's in the middle of spring football right now. So he's real happy. I stayed out of it. I have a theory. I think every child should have a good college experience. I'm not talking about football. I'm just about should enjoy college. So it's important to do your due diligence. Look, he was heavily recruited. He had a hard time telling Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, LSU, no. He had a hard time. But Texas was he liked the campus, liked the school. He really likes the coach. He feels like the coach can make him a good college quarterback, and so he made his decision, and we'll look forward to following him and supporting him.
Coach is Steve Sarkisian, right? He's kind of known as
Sarkisian. He actually started recruiting Arch when he was at Alabama. He was the offensive coordinator for Nick Saban at Alabama. And Cooper didn't recruiting has totally changed. It starts too early. Arch got offered, Cooper didn't let him be recruited, but they offered anyway when he was in the 7th grade, which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Yeah. But Cooper let him kind of start recruiting after his sophomore season, and Coach Sarkisian was recruiting him for Alabama.
And so you expect big things. There's a lot of pressure?
A lot of pressure.
Kid?
Too much. I mean, I worry about that. They've got a good quarterback. He played last year. He should be the quarterback this year and have a good year, but they're already talking about, because they're in spring training, is Arch going to beat him out, all that. It's a little too much media at times. So He's a good kid. He's humble. He's not full of himself. He'll handle it. And he wants to be a good player, but he wants to enjoy college. We'll support him.
Well, it'll be fun to watch.
Oh, yeah, we'll see.
So switch gears a little bit here. You speak about your faith quite a bit. Is it hard to maintain your faith within a family where there's so much fame and money and success?
No, I don't think so. It was just growing up in that small town. Olivia was the same way. We were. She had wonderful parents. They're both gone. Mine are gone. We both grew up in small towns, Baptists. We're Baptists. We're Baptists here for a lot of years, and then it was kind of a different thing with Baptist churches here. There's a seminary here, but most of our friends were Presbyterian church. So our parents were older. My dad was already gone, but they were up in years. But Olivia and I made a decision to change to the Presbyterian church, but we never told our parents. They didn't need to know. It is fine, but yeah, it takes a little. Maybe in New Orleans, raising kids, it's kind of like our kids would come. They were doing a Baptist church here. And Cooper came one time. He said, I kind of like this Catholic thing. It's they get it over with on Saturday afternoon. Sunday we go to the lake.
Right.
That's not what we
Saturday
do.
night mass.
Baptist like this. Big Catholic community right here. Strong Catholic.
Yeah, I think probably.
And Cooper is Catholic. Cooper married a good Catholic girl. He is Catholic.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of people probably assume that you're
Jesuit.
Catholic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Jesuit high school and Archbishop Newman. So both Eli and Peyton won the Walter Payton Award for character. What are you most proud of? I mean, I would think something like that.
A lot of daddies come up to me, fathers come up to me and say, you got to be, your sons both won Super Bowls, 2, MVP in Super Bowl. Peyton 5-time MVP. You got to be so proud. And yes, obviously we're proud, but I think if you put yourself in our place as a parent, what would be missing if those football careers they had, if they hadn't been involved in their communities and give back and done their role right there. And I think receiving the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award is evidence that they were doing their work there. I'll tell a story. Payton in Indianapolis got there. He was very involved with the hospital, St. Vincent's Hospital, but particularly the children's hospital part of it. And when they won that Super Bowl, the next year you play a Thursday night game where you kind of raise your banner. And their Thursday night game was against the Saints, coincidentally. But anyway, on Wednesday night, they had a ceremony and they'd renamed that hospital Peyton Manning Children's Hospital. And I told him, I said, this is your finest hour. And so Eli kind of fed off of that. And he said, Dad, I grew up in Louisiana, but I played football in Mississippi. I want to do something in Mississippi. And I went to Children's Hospital, and so kind of the same thing. He got involved, and I was so proud of Eli. Over a 4-year period, he raised $4 million, and we dedicated the Eli Manning Children's Clinics in Jackson. And I told him the same thing. I said, this is your finest hour. Cooper and Ellen have done the same thing here in the community in various respects. So I think as a parent, you would agree with me, you know, Super Bowls and MVPs are good, but to do your work and giving back and helping others, and for our family, that's what I'm most proud of.
That's an amazing legacy, yeah. So, and it shows in their public persona and how they conduct themselves. And just so you all know, Archie was good enough to sign some footballs that we're going to auction off for the SSA scholarship, for the foundation scholarship. So we're probably going to do that online at a later date, so you all can be looking out for that. So thank you for that. So Archie Manning, you're an amazing icon. Amazing.
Oh, well, thank y'all again. Thanks for having me. I was kidding, but I'll go ahead and mention now. I know y'all have to walk back and forth from this convention center. 1 block over, if you get a little thirsty, there's a place there called Manning's.
Yeah. I mean, that's a legacy.
So The reason you'll appreciate it, I never threw much away. And Olivia always said, we had storage, we had self-storage. And she said, why are you keeping this? I was kidding. I'd say, sports bar. And so 10 years ago we did it. So we cleaned out our storage. It's pretty, it's all on the walls right
You'll use it again.
Okay.
Yeah, no one ever really, but thanks for the tip on the bar. And this group has had a hard time finding drinks since they've been here.
I'm sure.
So, but you are an amazing ambassador for the league and for this city. And thank you for being available for us today.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Enjoyable.
Thank you.
Archie Manning. Thank you, Archie.
Okay.
Great job.
Thank you.